another episode of Hey It's Twee, a film club podcast. In this episode, comedian, director and actor Aziz Ansari talks about his first feature film. Ansari recently tried his hand at gig work with DoorDash, and it's inspired his directorial debut called Good Fortune, a comedy that sees a delivery driver swap lives with a tech CEO of a delivery app. It stars Ansari as Arj, a gig worker, Seth Rogen as the CEO of a tech company, and Keanu Reeves as Arj's guardian angel. Let's get into it.
You wanted to have wealth and success?
Now look at you.
Jeff's life is now your life.
You know, I spent a lot of time in LA, and, you know, it's such a crazy place. You know, you have this, you know, you have two people like Arj and Jeff. You know, what's interesting to me about these guys is you have one guy that's been blessed by the last 20 years. You know, he's probably put his money in crypto and works in tech and has this giant house and all this stuff. And then you have the other guy that's dealing with the other side of America and LA, and he's, you know, lost his job. He's got a lot of college debt, and he's doing, you know, gig work and things to kind of scrape by, and it's really hard for him. And the idea of putting those two guys together and trying to explore what that means and doing it in a funny way felt like a fun challenge. And then when you get to have Keanu Reeves play an angel, it kind of all came together.
And I read that you conducted a lot of research for this film, including interviewing gig workers. Was there anything you found out that really surprised you?
You know, it's all in the movie, you know, all of those things that I learned from talking to people and, you know, realizing how prevalent things like, you know, people having to sleep in their car, which is so hard. And you know, people will be like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this for a couple of days. And it's like, I'm doing it for a couple of weeks. And then it kind of becomes something else. And, you know, just to really spend time with people that do DoorDash and things. And, you know, I did DoorDash with this guy that we interviewed. I was like, hey, can I like take over the account for a little bit? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I did it for a couple hours, and you realize like, oh man, this is a lot different and more challenging than you realize, and the way people treat them and everything. And you know, I hope in the movie you kind of, after you see it, you know, and people have said this that I have seen, is like, oh, I think about the way I treat those people and how I tip them and everything in a much different way after seeing that perspective. You know, that's character gets.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because I was like so like aware now of how much tipping helps and all of those things after seeing this movie, and I felt like it was really empathetic. Did making this film teach you anything new about life as well?
Yeah, I mean, spending all that time talking to those people I interviewed and everything, it just made me realize all the things that are in the movie that kind of, you know, that Jeff kind of experiences and learns by the end. Like I had my version of that, even just doing this process, and you know, I also just, in terms of making the movie, it was just such an incredible experience to make my first film with Seth and Keanu, and I hadn't done comedy in a while. I've been doing more dramatic stuff recently, and to do a comedy again was so fun. And, you know, even in the screenings we've done so far, to just see a theater full of people laughing and being in a theater together, you know, that's one thing that's really important to me, is people seeing it in the theater, because it's something that's kind of gone away. Like, you know, Seth used to do all these movies like Pineapple Express and Superbad and 40-Year-Old Virgin. And I remember going to the theater and laughing with a group of people. And now it's like, you know, comedy's kind of gone more into TV series and things like that. And I hope with this movie, it starts the trend again of people being in the cinema and enjoying these movies together and laughing with your friends and not just sitting at home and keeping it on in the background while you're, you know, texting or whatever.
Yeah, because I read an interview, and I think it was related to this, how you said Barbie kind of gave you hope that it could be successful on a large scale.
Yeah, I mean, when people say like, oh, comedies don't work in theaters, I'm like, well, which ones are you talking about? Because none of them have been made, you know, and Barbie, you know, is an amazing movie, and it's a comedy. Everyone was laughing the whole time I was there, you know, it's so funny. And that kind of made me feel like, oh, if we can do something big, and, you know, we have Keanu playing an angel and all this stuff, that hopefully we can kind of get a similar, you know, excitement to the idea of seeing it in the theater and not just, you know, watching it at home, you know.
And Keanu Reeves' character Gabriel has this kind of epiphany when he becomes human and experiences things for the first time, like dancing and chicken nuggies. What did you most want to explore in relation to this?
I just love the idea of Keanu's character not knowing anything about what it is to be human. And all of a sudden, he's just dropped in the deep end. He's now a guy that's struggling to get by in LA. And, he has to become a dishwasher. And he starts off like, oh man, this is great. And then by the end, he's like smoking cigarettes. He's like drinking. And, and it was so fun to see him go on that journey from being excited to being like, no, this is so harsh. And, how hard it is. And, he was so great at all of it and made me laugh so much.
In terms of filmmaking, where do you want to go next and what kind of stories do you want to tell?
Oh man, I don't know if I can tell you, but I have 2 other scripts ready to go. So if you guys go to Good Fortune and see it a bunch of times, I'll get to make those other ones hopefully. But yeah, I mean, I have 2 things. One is like kind of a smaller idea that's like, oh, it's kind of like the Master of None series I did on Netflix. It's a lot about relationships and people talking and things like that. And then I have another idea that's a crazier idea that's kind of more of a sci-fi idea, which I'm really excited about. And I read that someone told me like Christopher Nolan, like when he's like editing his movies, he starts writing the next one. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try that. And so I started writing while I was editing a little bit, and I finished this script that I'm really excited about, but it's too early to say much about it. But I'd love to keep making movies. I had such a great time, and I feel like I learned so much that I think I would be even better doing the next ones.
And I feel like this movie is so topical, especially with cost of living, even here in Australia. Do you feel like, it's an issue that we should be talking more about in art and across kind of everything, really?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at other time periods of history where there's been this kind of moment, this is always in movies and stuff. If you look at movies like Trading Places or even further back. It's a Wonderful Life deals with this kind of stuff. It's in there. There's stuff about, wealth inequality and things like that. Potter is Jeff, and then, I'm in England now. There was a lot of films, the British kitchen sink genre dealing with, people that were in this moment of frustration that Arj has, where it's like, I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to college, I got a degree, I did good in school, and now I'm just burdened by debt. I can't get a job in the thing I studied, and everything kind of feels stacked against you. And when we did the early screenings, I looked at what people said and wrote in the little cards they give out, and so many people were like, "Yeah, I've dealt with this. I understand what this guy's going through, and I'm so glad to see this on screen." Because to me, the whole point is like, if you're someone dealing with that, like, you're not alone. Like, everyone, so many people are dealing with this stuff, and hopefully the movie makes everyone think about it more.
It definitely made me think about it more. Is there a message you'd like viewers to specifically take away from this film?
When I was working on the movie, I was like, what is this really about? And to me, it's really about that character, Arj, and he just doesn't have hope anymore. So I hope if you're my hope is that if you're someone that's struggling and you have your own version of whatever this character is dealing with, is that you don't give up and that you're able to keep hope and that I hope things will be okay.
I tried to show him that wealth wouldn't solve all his problems. And? It seems to have solved most of his problems.
Thanks so much for listening. I'm Hey It's Twee across most socials, Instagram, Substack, TikTok and YouTube. Thanks for listening and I'll see you next time.